5G is the fifth generation of wireless technology that offers faster data speeds, lower latency, and improved network capacity. It is significant because it has the potential to revolutionize industries from healthcare and transportation to entertainment and gaming. With speeds up to 20 times faster than 4G, 5G enables new applications and services that were previously not possible. Additionally, 5G's improved network efficiency and reliability can help support the growth of the Internet of Things, IoT, and connected devices. The value of 5G is in its ability to provide enhanced experience to users, unlock new business opportunities for companies, and drive innovation and economic growth. Hello, my name is Anag, and I welcome you to this webinar where we'll talk about the industrial applications of 5G, realize its potential, and the challenges that stare at us. Allow me to welcome our guests, Mr. Santosh Sahoo and Mr. Syed Nadeem Ahmad. Santosh currently serves as the Vice President of Global Telco Solutions, E-Mobility, and IoT at Teliolabs. Let's take a peek into his academic journey, shall we? He has a rich background with multiple master's degrees, the first in computer applications and the next in artificial intelligence and machine learning, which he attained from BITS Pilani. He has more than 19 years of experience in information technology, working with telcos across US, Europe, and APAC in diverse areas spanning across B2B and B2C. Our next guest, Mr. Syed Nadeem Ahmad, who is synonymous to telecom industry, has an elaborate experience and expertise with telecom technologies from 2G to 5G. He has previously worked with Fujitsu Optel Limited, Reliance Communications, Huawei, and now serves as the SME for 5G at Teliolabs. Welcome, Santosh and Nadeem, to this webinar. We're really keen to have a conversation with you and learn what experts.
Thanks, Anand.
Glad. And we are really looking forward to learn what experts such as you think about 5G. So we'll conduct this exercise with a few questions, and we'd love to pick your brain on them. But before we begin, if you'd like to add something to this introduction, please go ahead.
No, absolutely excited to be here, and thanks for having me here on this, webinar and podcast. And yeah, I mean, I'm more than happy to share my views on 5G.
Really glad. It's a pleasure to have you, Santosh.
Yeah, we can start, please.
So let me start with the first question, and here goes. Santosh, I'll direct this question to you. Where are we currently standing on the path to making 5G a commercial reality?
Yeah, that's very interesting. If we look at the 5G journey, so it started. It's not very old. It started, sometime around 2019. And if you just look from a global perspective, right, the different countries are in different, sort of phase out, rollout of the 5G services in different cities. I mean, I'll just give a very quick brief and a global scenario about where we are today, right? So if we look at today, so there are almost around 70 plus countries who have rolled out the 5G service. Including India. I mean, we are in the initial stage of out of the 5G services in India. So, I mean, again, as it started back in 2019, it slowed down a bit because of the COVID pandemic, and now again, it is picking up the pace. So, if you look at the global scenario, so US, China, South Korea, Japan, and Netherlands, so these are the countries who are leading the race. And if you look at China, so they have almost, rolled out the 5G services in more than 356 cities, followed by US, which has, almost more than 296 cities, where they have rolled out their 5G services. And similarly followed by, South Korea, Japan, and some of the European countries as well, including Netherlands and the UK. So now, if we look from an Indian context, India launched its 5G services at the 6th edition of the Indian Mobile Congress in 2022. And the plan is, in the first phase, India is planning to roll out in 13 different cities, then gradually it will expand to the other cities. Yeah, and because when we talk about 5G, right, so it's not a single technology per se. Which is kind of implemented. So it's an amalgamation of various technologies together, the excellence in different areas where, it fits together as an ecosystem where the 5G services are rolled out. So that's why even the telco operators and, the government bodies who are rolling out the different policy frameworks, so basically they are, kind of taking a very cautious approach in rolling out the services. It's not just about rolling out of the services, but again, how do we monetize the different players who are kind of rolling out the services? How do they monetize those services? And what is going to be the user experience and response to 5G? So, for example, we have come across all these 2G, 3G, 4G kind of services. So then, what is 5G? Is it just an increase of the speed? Then, if it is just an increase of the speed, is the user, kind of convinced enough to pay more for this additional bandwidth? So there are a lot of questions, and we'll definitely talk in due course. But yeah, I mean, this is just a global perspective where the 5G services have been rolled out, and which is definitely going to bring in phenomenal change in the way people use the 5G services in many areas, including your industrial automation, the collaborative robots, the mission critical applications, be it smart agriculture, logistics, smart cities, fintech, healthcare, education, you name any industry, it's going to disrupt that industry in many ways. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, this is just a, sneak peek into where we are in terms of the 5G.
5G ultimately is all permeating, and we have realized some of its potential, and we are yet to realize a lot of it, right? Let me thank you for this quick peek into what 5G is and how can we, or where are we standing on route to 5G and its realization, its potential as well. And the next question, let me direct this to Nadeem, if you can shed light on, and I think it is one of the most significant questions, let alone for 5G, but any technology, any revolutionary technology that comes out and which is promising. So, in the context of 5G in particular, what are the energy challenges in deploying it and in deploying 5G and beyond?
So, Anand, since I have been in the telecom industry from a long and have been a part of the different rollouts during this my journey, so I know the value of energy requirement while you are rolling out the new sites. So even though 5G networks are estimated to be more efficient than the previous generation, 3G, 4G generations, but they still require far more energy due to the increased network density. Number of sites rolled will be huge in this 5G. Heavy reliance on the IT systems, and of course, increased network use and accelerated traffic growth. The more the users are there and more data transportation will be there, it will accelerate the traffic growth. And it is expected that the consumption will be increased by 150% by coming years, okay, and compared to current duration. And it is, of course, it is because of the increase in macro nodes and network data centers. You are increasing number of sites and data centers for this 5G services. Now, if we talk about the challenges, if the telco energy consumption increases, of course, the consumption will increase, so it will increase the energy cost for the operator. If this cost is increasing, telecom operators' profit will also go down. Okay, so they have to think in that way how to reduce this cost and how to increase their profits. And other than the profit, it will be a hole in their promise to reduce the greenhouse gas emission. And because carbon neutral over the next 3 decades, it will of course means more energy consumption. So it will of course going to affect our Earth as well. And we can see the backlash from the customers as well as the pressure from the government, investors, and regulators to improve their environmental records. So we will see major challenges will be from the energy side, and we have to see how we are going to compensate that requirements through solar panels or maybe some other upcoming technologies for the energy. Yeah, Anand.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning those, and many of those are not very obvious to us when we look at we look at technologies, telecom technologies such as 5G. We talk just about the speeds and the potential applications. Energy consumption is also, and energy efficiency is also quite critical. So, thank you for the challenges that you mentioned. And on the same note, let me come to Santosh. Can you take us through some of the more challenges that, apart from the energy challenges, obviously, some more challenges that come as a roadblock to 5G technology?
Yeah, absolutely, Anag. I'll definitely share my point of view on. So 5G as a technology, as I said, it's an amalgamation of various technologies which are kind of working together. So that inherently brings in quite a lot of challenges, for 5G technology implementation, right? So starting from the availability of the spectrum, because as you know, I mean, 5G would operate on, the low band, the medium band, and the high band. And again, how that interoperability happens, across those, along with, virtualization of the 5G services, the network slicing, and all those kind of stuff. So that's one of the key challenges. The second challenge is, again, in order to have the 5G services efficiently, you need to have the 5G enabled handheld devices, right? So manufacturing of those devices, again, with the global geopolitics and the supply chain issues, what's happening, how do you procure those kind of, manufacturing, do the manufacturing and procure the devices on time to, faster rollout of the services, and whether those devices are capable of interoperability across multiple, countries. People might be roaming using their 5G handheld devices, and again, with the local context in a different country of the 5G network, is it kind of interoperable and giving the same level of experience that the user is expecting, right? So that's another challenge. The third challenge I would highlight is testing of the services that you roll out for 5G technology, because it's quite complex in nature. There are, be it massive MIMO, or the low latency services, or those kind of things. I mean, how do you test and bring that uh, experience for the user? Because unless we make it very seamless and the level of user experience for the user is superior, so it has to be a step change from 4G. Because if the customer is paying more for the services, it cannot be a very traditional service. And just like you get a subscription package per month to avail this bandwidth, then we are really undermining the capabilities of the 5G services, right? So this testing of the 5G services is very important, where we can provide the seamless and better experience to the user. Yeah.
Yeah.
The next thing, again, inherently comes up with a huge capital investment, in terms of deploying the 5G network infrastructure. So that definitely has to be. And again, as Nadeem mentioned about the density of the 5G network that needs to be deployed, and the energy consumption again. So those are very key challenges as well. And when the whole, globally we are moving towards more sustainability, reduce the power, make it more greener. How do we ensure the sustainability factor is also taken into account in the whole, kind of deployment or rollout of the 5G services? And if you look at the 5G services, again, it's built on top of the backhaul infrastructure, where your backhaul infrastructure could be, if you look at today, many countries, I mean, obviously different countries are in different stages of the implementation, but if you look at the backhaul infrastructure, quite a lot can be microwave backhaul infrastructure, right? Which could extend up to 75% of the backhaul infrastructure. Similarly, you have fiber backhaul infrastructure, which is pretty good from a 5G technology implementation perspective. But if you have microwave backhaul, then again, you may not be able to achieve the level of speed that we are trying to, right? So these are very, important decisions that the telco operators need to take into consideration if they have to really give the level of experience that the customer is expecting from 5G service. Now, apart from that, you also need to look at huge storage infrastructure requirement, because once the 5G is rolled out, the speed, the bandwidth, the latency, that is going to generate huge amount of data traffic. Yeah. And then what are you going to do with that data, and where are you going to store that data, and how do you monetize the data, right? So these are very critical strategic decisions that the telco operators need to look at. Yeah. And on top of it, there is very stiff competition from the hyperscalers like Google and Amazons of the world, wherein they are fundamentally challenging the telco sort of infrastructure by bringing in their own virtual capability with the 5G infrastructure, right? So then, how do you compete with those hyperscalers? Yeah, and again, with the data, the privacy concerns, the security, how do you ensure the security is being taken into account? And finally, as far as the 5G infrastructure is concerned, as I said, it's very capital intensive, and it has to be a dense network to really create that level of experience for the customers. And so there is going to be a sort of digital divide between the urban and rural people. The reason being, urban is a high density or high populated country where putting the infrastructure makes sense. Maybe it's better in terms of return on investment for the telco operators, where the rural may not be. And does that mean the rural is going to be devoid of, gaining those 5G experience? So that's a kind of, decisions or key strategic thought process that needs to go in the overall strategy of deploying the 5G technology. And definitely these are some of the very key challenges that the telco operators are going to face.
Well,
I
yeah.
think 5G handset cost can also be one of the factors, just
Yeah,
including
absolutely.
these things.
So
Yeah,
thank you for the answer. Thanks a lot, Santosh. And it was quite intriguing to me because usually when we talk of telcos, the likes of when you mentioned Google and Amazon, they are related on a different plane. So we perceive them to be on a different plane. We don't perceive them necessarily to be on the same plane as the telcos. But when you mention those, it's quite intriguing to me, and I hope it's intriguing to most of our audience as well to delve further deeper into what role exactly do they have and how are they pitching in with their offerings into the 5G landscape. We've talked about the challenges. Let's talk a bit about the capabilities as well, and let me come to Nadeem for this answer. Can you please illustrate the basic 5G capability to support ultra reliable, low latency services available?
so uh, uh, since um, since we are upgrading our system from 4G to 5G,
Mm.
yesterday only I was discussing with one of my mates. See, number of users is not going to increase. Currently, if the human being, the persons who are using handsets with the 4G technology, what operators are going to do, they are just going to replace their handset with the 4G to the 5G only. The number of users as a mobile handset user consumption will be the same. And if we say in this perspective, there is no increase in the revenue, right? But but in 5G we have different type of, there is a golden triangle into the 5G and different kind of services on which we have different use cases. So out of this golden triangle, one is of course is the enhanced broadband mobile system in which we use our handset with the high speed broadband system. Another is ultra reliable low latency communication system. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is the key pillar of the 5G radio system. Ultra 5G, ultra reliable low latency communication, we will call it URLLC now. Service metric makes it possible to support use cases that require very high reliability and very low latency. Latency means the response from the network to the user. Okay. So if we talk about now, if we are talking about the capabilities of this particular URLLC vertical, so we can have like industrial automation. We can have means URLLC help to automate factory processes and power systems. Nowadays, means companies are replacing humans with robots in the manufacturing process to achieve higher productivity and reliability, and of course, with less human errors. The more humans are engaged, errors possibilities are higher there. If machines are working with a very high connectivity, so there's very less chances of the errors.
Mm.
And another capability we can see of the URLC vertical of the 5G is the healthcare industry. So augmented reliability, AR assisted surgery.
Yeah.
It makes surgeon to carry out surgical diagnostic procedures remotely, sitting at one place and doing the surgery at the place through a combination of robot arms and sensors. So here in this, he's sending data. He's instructing the robot from sitting one place to another in the form of data. He's sending instruction in the form of data. That robot must be highly reliable. Okay. There is slight delay or the latency may mean him to a harm to a patient. So it requires a very high reliability, as I said earlier, and very low latency. So URLs is going to help here. Remotely setting a surgeon can operate a patient who is far away from him. And another capability we can see is the intelligent transportation. You might have heard about the self-driven cars, drone-based delivery, and vehicles talking to each other. Vehicle are looking at the different signboards and different how is the traffic and what is the prediction also in coming days. So this such combination makes modes are significant to route discovery and collision avoidance in the real time. Okay, there will be no collision if our 5G is working into the picture. And one very important means we can say the predictive maintenance. Then predictive vehicle maintenance, 5G URLC provides a secure, highly reliable wireless connectivity that provides real-time data analytics based on the defined metrics. We can define metrics like temperature, vibration, and but these are registered for the multiple wireless sensor systems to a cellular network and integrated into the vehicle management system. Okay. This data analytics results from the system will help provide potential issues, keep the vehicle maintained. The analytical person from this analysis, he can observe like there is a gain in the matrix, so he can immediately go for the maintenance, decreasing the maintenance cost and downtime. And another thing from the URLC of the 5G is it's not electric grid. It will help the 5G URLC service means diagnostic of the faults in the electric grids in the real time. Okay. These days we are facing a lot of electrical issues. Management of the power distribution and balancing the power while detecting and mitigating alarms. There is an alarm, there is a cut. So in the real time, it can route your distribution from one place to another. There could be multiple. These are the major highlights which I can mention over here. Anand.
Yeah, and the notion of the AR assisted surgery that you mentioned, that those things when 5G comes to reality, in fact, it has already been implemented as a reality. But when it becomes as common as 4G of today, it'll be something like how the wireless phones replace the need for telecom wires to run from the other one place to the other, and just making the need for making it redundant, that need for setting up the wire lines for transmission of communication from one place to the other, and ultimately enabling everyone across the globe avail the services, avail the advantages that technology offers, yeah, the communication offers. So one thing that Santosh, you already mentioned, and I've been hearing it quite a lot, is network slicing, right? Can you elaborate the context a bit in which it is being used?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just add on to what Mr. Nadeem said. You know, in terms of the various use cases, how is it possible, right? So if we look at the customer segmentation point of view, whether it is a B2C customer or it's a B2B enterprise customer, right? So 5G definitely has a lot of role to play over there. Now, network slicing basically works on the concept of virtualization. So if you look at the 5G technology, physical infrastructure, so basically there is a physical infrastructure layer, but on top of it, the whole infrastructure is virtualized. Now, when it is unlike the other previous generation of network infrastructure, where, for example, 4G, where we don't have network slicing, we cannot sort of virtualize and logically divide into different services of those networks. But that's a beauty of 5G services, where we can virtualize the services, where we can break it into different slices, and maybe one slice could be playing or offering a specific service, right? So in that context, for example, if I may say enhanced mobile broadband as one of, it runs on a particular network slice, which is used to provide online gaming experience, the cloud gamification experience to the user, or augmented reality, AR and VR, those kind of services being used on enhanced mobile broadband, which is, kind of operating on a particular network slice, right? Similarly, you have another network slice where you have industrial automation, where there are robotic collaboration, where it requires ultra reliability, low latency services, right? Could be many other mission critical applications. Nowadays, we are hearing about these army of drones, right? So the future, it might be looking like a fictional story, but I'll just quote one of the German philosophers mentioned, if when there is a new innovation, so basically it goes through 3 steps. And one of the first step is people will ridicule it, right? They'll say, oh, it's not possible, right? So but the second step is they'll do they will oppose this concept quite a lot. Oh, it's gonna take away our jobs, it's gonna do a lot of things. If that has been the case when calculator was invented, then people would have said, oh, it's going to take away our jobs, But has that really happened? It has redefined the whole concept, of using human intelligence in a more efficient and better way,
Yeah.
right? And similarly, and the third step is that becomes a de facto standard, for people to use. So every innovation goes through these three different phases, right? Similarly, the 5G technology service is, playing that role as well today, right? And many people are still skeptical about it because it's something, and I'm sure globally many organizations, enterprises, startups, medium to small scale industries, and even the big industries, they are doing quite extensive research in terms of how do they bring in those values to the customers, right? And that is where, coming back to your questions on network slicing, so basically it's more fundamentally in the background, it's kind of supported by software defined networking, where the whole virtualization layer is created and broken into different slices of the network for differentiated services which needs to be given. And why these differentiated services? Because depending on your use case, depending on your customer's requirement or the segment of the customers, the requirement of the service could be different. So each slice of a network can have its own sort of logical topology, security rules, or different performance characteristics within the limits imposed by the underlying physical networks, right? And the different slices can be dedicated to different purposes, such as ensuring a specific application or service gets priority access to capacity, or and delivering and isolating traffic for specific users or device classes. And that's why network slicing is very, very important kind of concept in the overall 5G implementation.
So,
I will just add here. I'm sorry, Ahmad. I will just add here to Santosh's points what he mentioned. The best example of slicing of 5G network is a person, a user, human being sitting in a driverless car, and this car is also connected to the 5G network, driverless car, and this user who is sitting into the car, he's also having 5G handset with him. So his 5G handset he's using will be using the EMBB slice of the network, but this car on which he is sitting, driverless car, will be using URLC slice of the network. The same network,
Absolutely.
physical network, but sliced into different users and use cases.
such closely knitted, but such stark difference in which they are in the role which they are playing in the network. It's really, it stretches imagination. The notion that you just shared, the person sitting inside the car using a different slice, and the car which the person is driving using a different slice by itself. Wild. So I'll come to Santosh. You mentioned the monetization aspect, right? So how do you see the telcos leveraging the 5G services and monetizing from it?
Yeah, that's a very, very, and probably I would say the most critical thing everybody is after. I mean, especially the telcos, right? As far as the monetization is concerned, there are few fundamental principles that needs to be looked at. Okay, and probably we should look at it from different context or segment of the users. If it is B2C user, the direct consumer, then as I said previously, it just cannot be okay. In 4G you are getting X speed, and in 5G you're gonna get Y speed. Well, I'm probably happy with my 4G services. Do I need to go to 5G? Right?
Big question.
I mean, if I'm a user, I would fundamentally ask that question. So it really has to be a step change. The way it is disrupting the whole sort of experience for the user, for the B2C user, right? So that is very important aspect where we need to look at what user experience can we provide. And when I say so I'll give certain examples, right? And probably telcos should look at to monetize the impulse buying habits of the users, right?
Yeah.
Now, when I say impulse buying habits, what exactly it means? Let's say I'm somewhere in a remote place where probably I don't have a good network coverage, but again, as it's evident from the COVID era, probably I might have to take an important call somewhere, but I'm struggling with the network coverage. but I need 5G sort of high-speed services for a couple of hours so that I can pretty well have
Get
my
measures done.
call seamlessly, right? So then that's an impulse. I definitely, I'm tempted to buy that 5G service for a couple of hours. Can I get that? Right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it is just one example. There can be n number of such examples. Or maybe I'm traveling in a very high-speed train where I need or maybe I'm watching a movie. I need my 5G services where it can give me that experience without any delay. Because nowadays the concept of downloading a movie and watching it, it's gone probably, right? So everybody is streaming with the high-speed network and data services. So can I sort of avail that kind of experience? And I would be tempted to buy a certain package for probably a couple of hours to gain that. Can the telcos provide such kind of differentiated services to the B2B customers? So similarly, the cloud gaming experience, right? So I remember in childhood days when we used to, play the video games, right? So a couple of friends sitting, side by side and playing on the console. But it's going to be very, very online and immersive experience with the 5G technology, right? So it's kind of being driven from the cloud platform where the gaming, software logic is being, deployed into the cloud and being played by various friends, and there is no boundaries to where they are present, right? So they could be present anywhere and having the same experience of playing the game together, right? So these are fundamentally kind of going to be redefined, not only just cloud gaming. I mean, you talk about any immersive entertainment using VR, or you are watching sports in a sports stadium from different angles, different views. How do you gain that level of experience? And I'm sure users are gonna pay higher charges for it. I mean, if the telcos can kind of create that level of experience for the users, then definitely that's gonna be very, very good for the users as well. And apart from that, there are many content providers who are coming up with very, very good content where the users are willing to pay for it. And the users might, prefer to have the content with the 5G services together bundled as a service instead of, taking that directly from the 5G network service provider. Even they could go for, even if I'm using the 5G services of a network, I could go for the content, a provider with a 5G bundle service, which is offered by some other operator. Right? So those kind of logical isolation and sort of services is also quite possible, right? Where I have the freedom, what I choose and what content and what kind of bundle I choose along with that service. So these are some of the perspectives from consumer perspective. I mean, which has been a bit murky if you look at, for the B2C consumers using the 5G services. So far, it's evolving, and people are still, trying to gain what could be the best use case, for the telco operators. Now, if you look at the enterprise, it's full of use cases everywhere. You talk about any industry, you talk about smart agriculture, where you can automate the livestock farming, be it poultry, the cows, the buffaloes, the pigs, or whatever you name it. You can do quite a lot of automation in terms of their environment, the biosafety, the automation. Similarly, if you talk about the industry assembly line, you can automate a whole load of things in the assembly line, whether the standard operating procedures. So obviously there is a amalgamation of other technologies like artificial intelligence, the narrowband IoT, now where the battery life could go on for 10 years, right? It all depends on what sort of devices or sensors you're going to use. I mean, that specifically customized to the specific use case. And the list, I can go on and on and on. So, so that's why it's very interesting to understand how the telcos can create a better ecosystem of players, because the telcos are no more traditional telcos. It's not about voice and broadband services and come up with a subscription package. Those days are gone.
Yeah.
Right? And we are talking about an era where differential services and very unique services and unique experiences that we are going to provide with the advent of 5G technology. So these are definitely play quite a lot of important role in the overall monetization of the various 5G services, and that's where the telcos need to invest in 5G core. They need to gain deeper insight into the customers and what their expectations are and what way the technological innovation can fulfill, or create new disruptive solutions for the customers, right? So building the right partner ecosystem is very important, where you cannot expect telcos to go and build solutions in around every use case, right? There are different players who are doing it. The telcos need to go and create that right partner ecosystem, and also they need to promote the 5G adoption, whether they incentivize it or do whatever, with the different policy framework by the government bodies and all. So that's again a different subject to discuss. But 5G adoption needs to be adopted, right? And they need to invest in the right solutions. So when we talk about these 5G services, definitely it's not a very simple problem to solve. So do you have the right ecosystem in terms of orchestrating the solutions or the services? And do you have the right kind of BSS framework where we can monetize and create the partner ecosystem and the pricing, the tariff, and how seamlessly do you apply that to the different users, be it B2B and B2C? So these are some of the very important aspects that needs to be looked at from the overall monetization of the different 5G services.
Yeah, thank you so much, Santosh, for this in-depth analysis and the insights that you've given. Well, Nadeem, would you like to add something? Would you like to comment on the points that Santosh has made?
No, I think Santosh has covered very broadly. All he has covered are the points like machine-to-machine communication, where thousands of devices connected to the system and their battery life is more than 10 years. So we can imagine in which era we are entering. And we already discussed about the URLLC use cases. And of course, EMBB already means it is the basic, I will say, basic services to be provided by the 5G. But major will be the MMTC and the URLLC, of course. We already discussed all these points. Yeah.
5G appears to be quite interesting just by its, I mean, the applications, the challenges, the possibilities, that putting that aside, but the nature itself, it appears to be a melting pot of a lot of technology, a lot of approaches, and those that what those create diverges to impact so many domains, so many such diversity of areas, and creates possibilities which haven't been realized yet to monetize a lot of services that we are yet to realize that may be achieved through this revolutionary technology. Well, this has been quite enlightening. Thank you to our guests for their time and sharing their perspectives. Thank you to all our audience for joining us today for this engaging and informative webinar. We hope you have gained valuable insights and knowledge from our speakers and discussions. Remember that advancements in 5G have the potential to greatly impact and shape our future. So let's continue to stay informed and stay curious. We welcome you to stay connected with us and never miss a beat by following Teliolabs on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you again for your time and attention, and we hope to see you again in our future. Have a great day.
Really appreciate that, and it has been a very, very wonderful discussion, Ahmad, and Nadeem. Really appreciate. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Santosh, for your insights. Thanks.
Bye bye. Have a great day.
Thanks, Anand. Bye bye. Take care.